Have you ever wondered how one of the most enduring and complex conflicts in modern history began? Let's take a step back in time to the late 19th and early 20th centuries, when the region known today as Israel and Palestine was part of the vast Ottoman Empire. This was a time when national identities were beginning to take shape and the seeds of conflict were sown. In the heart of this emerging national consciousness were two distinct communities, one Jewish, longing for a homeland as a refuge from widespread persecution, and the other Arab, who had been living in the region for centuries. As waves of Jewish immigrants arrived, tensions between these communities began to simmer. Enter the Balfour Declaration of November 1917. The British government in this document expressed its support for the establishment of a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine. This announcement stoked the flames of discord. The Arab community, which constituted the majority in Palestine at the time, felt threatened by what they perceived as an imposition on their ancestral lands. The situation further complicated with the British mandate in Palestine post-World War I. The British were now in control of Palestine, and they had the challenging task of balancing the aspirations of both Jewish and Arab communities. However, their policies often ended up intensifying the discord between these communities. The 1920s and 1930s saw a significant increase in Jewish immigration to Palestine, driven largely by the rise of anti-Semitism in Europe. This led to a corresponding increase in land purchases by Jewish settlers, often resulting in the displacement of Arab farmers. The growing Jewish presence, coupled with the increasing dispossession of Arab lands, sparked off a series of violent confrontations. As the decades rolled on, these confrontations escalated and the divide deepened. By the time World War II ended, the stage was set for a conflict that would reverberate through the decades. In 1948, the world map changed forever. The year marked the birth of a new nation, Israel, but also the beginning of a long-standing conflict that still reverberates around the world. The seeds of this transformation were sown in 1947, when the United Nations proposed a partition plan. The plan aimed to divide the British Mandate of Palestine into two separate entities, one Jewish and one Arab. The Jewish agency accepted the plan, but it was vehemently opposed by the Palestinian Arabs and the surrounding Arab states. The stage was set for a clash. The declaration of the State of Israel on May 14, 1948, was met with immediate military response from neighboring Arab countries. This marked the beginning of the 1948 Arab-Israeli War, a bloody conflict that lasted for just over a year. However, one of the most significant and heart-wrenching consequences of this war was the mass exodus of Palestinians from their homeland, a tragic event known as Nakba, or the catastrophe. Hundreds of thousands of Palestinians fled or were expelled from their homes, forced to seek refuge in neighboring countries or in what remained of Palestine. These displaced individuals and their descendants are today known as Palestinian refugees, a population whose right to return to their homes is a central issue in the Israel-Palestine conflict. The loss, trauma, and displacement experienced during Nakba have left deep scars that still shape the Palestinian identity and fuel the ongoing struggle for self-determination. The wounds of 1948 are still felt today, as the question of refugees remains a major point of contention. The birth of Israel and the Palestinian exodus represent a pivotal moment in history, setting the stage for decades of conflict and negotiation, and underlining the complexity of the Israel-Palestine issue. The decades following Israel's formation were marked by wars, uprisings, and attempts at peace. A significant turning point in the conflict was the Six-Day War of 1967. Israel's victory expanded its territorial control, encompassing the West Bank, Gaza Strip, Sinai Peninsula, and Golan Heights. This territorial expansion intensified the conflict, with Palestinians under Israeli control demanding their rights. In the late 20th century, two major uprisings known as the First and Second Intifada further escalated the tensions. The First Intifada, beginning in 1987, saw widespread protests, largely led by Palestinian youth. The Second Intifada, starting in 2000, was more violent and deadly, with suicide bombings and military operations causing immense loss of life on both sides. Amidst the turmoil, attempts at peace were made. The Oslo Accords of the 1990s, for instance, were a beacon of hope. They marked the first direct, face-to-face agreement between Israel and political representatives of Palestinians. The accords aim to pave the way for a comprehensive peace agreement by establishing a framework for self-governance in certain areas of West Bank and Gaza Strip. The turn of the century also saw the Camp David summit, another significant peace attempt. Despite intensive negotiations, the summit ended without an agreement, highlighting the complexity and deep-seated nature of the conflict. These events have shaped the present dynamics of the conflict, with no clear resolution in sight. Today, the Israel-Palestine conflict remains a deeply rooted issue with no easy solutions. The status of Jerusalem continues to be a point of contention, with its sacred sites being a symbolic and emotional epicenter for both Israelis and Palestinians. Tensions over control of these sites have often led to violence, with accusations of violation of agreements adding fuel to the fire. Settlements in the West Bank have been a long-standing issue, further complicating peace efforts. The blockade of Gaza, on the other hand, has led to a humanitarian crisis, with restricted movement and limited access to basic necessities. This conflict elicits strong reactions globally due to its historical, religious, and political implications. The complexity of the issues involved makes it difficult for many countries to take a clear stand. The narrative varies depending on the lens through which one views the conflict, leading to diverse and often polarizing opinions. As we grapple with the realities of this conflict, it's important to remember the human lives affected by it every day. Whether it's the Israeli mother living in fear of rocket attacks, or the Palestinian child growing up amidst violence and uncertainty, it's the everyday people who bear the brunt of this ongoing strife. As observers, it's crucial to approach this issue with empathy, understanding, and a commitment to fairness. After all, history is not just about dates and events, but about the people who live it.